Good morning from Vietnam, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining our Insight Sharing program and share your stories and your works with our audience. We really thanks for you to do that for us.
Thank you so much. I love to talk about selling, and I think that selling challenges are universal around the world. So I'm excited to have a chance to be with your audience.
Thank you. Catherine, I've been in sell and B2B selling for a long time also and specialize in human resource solution selling. And to me, if I look back at my career, I think that I still tell people that going to the sales career has a lot of nerves. And then now you are my speaker who joining and sharing your journey and how you train people to be an effective seller and like a trusted advisor in selling. So we want to examine the journey and the works that you do today. All right. And to start off, in our culture, it's going to be very, rewarding for our audience if they can help you to do in the introduction of who you are and the works that you do first. Can you do that first, please?
Sure, I'm happy to. My name is Catherine Brown. I live in Houston, Texas. I've lived in several places around the United States. I have always been in either recruiting or business to business sales of some kind. And my background is that, like most salespeople I know and most business owners I know, I didn't intend to go into selling. I would say I fell into it. That is what I actually pull people and ask them in workshops, when I speak at conferences, things like that. I say, raise your hand if you thought you were going to be in sales. And very rarely does anyone ever raise their hand. And there's probably lots of reasons for that. But I did fall into it. I found that I really loved it. I feel that selling is something you do for people and not to them or at them. And that's a very important differentiation. And so I've really come to have a deep affection for selling, but I did not intend to go into it. I thought I was going to be a professional musician. And I studied to be a professional musician all the way through university. But it was when I graduated, I felt like I didn't think I wanted to do it competitively anymore. It's very tough to make it as a professional musician, and I was pretty tired after such intense training and ready to try something different. So I had my first corporate recruiting position, and that was the way in for me to begin understanding the power of referrals, calling on people, building lifelong relationships with clients. I really just took to it beautifully and enjoyed it, so I stayed there.
Oh, well, so you started your selling professional career as a recruiter, and then and we would like to know how that how from that recruiting background to evolve, keep evolving for you to build your body of work. Can you share with us that?
Yes, so I did that a couple of jobs out of university, and it was where I learned to cold call. So right out of the gate, this was in the mid 1990s. This is when I remember my first job out of college. I remember that this technical consultant was talking to the company owner at the time and said, with the internet, there are going to be corporate web pages and you need a corporate website. And I remember my boss at the time saying, why do we need a corporate website? Because no one had that yet, and so it's just funny to think how things have evolved. So, I mean, everything was done by telephone. So you would have, someone would mail you a resume, and then eventually, and then sometimes email, but we didn't use email even the way we do now, right? Sometimes they'd mail a Word document, but sometimes you get it in the mail at the office, and then I would have to call them up. Or I would learn a name of someone, call the switchboard, find the operator, cold call them, see if they were interested in a job I was filling. So it's really where I did get some of those core sales skills right away in having to manage my own time, having to manage my nerves, having to call on people, having to ask for referrals. I would say that's where I cut my teeth.
And then how from from the works that you gain the experience as a selling person, now go into the work of teaching people how to be a who be better at selling. it's a long journey to get there. So we wanted to understand, how do you, transitioning from doing the selling job and then transitioning to teaching other people to do the job and selling. Can you share with us?
Sure, sure, thank you. Well, what happened is I started learning to cold call immediately. I mean, I was 22, right out of college, and I realized pretty early on in my career that I was good at it. I would say some days I loved it, some days I didn't love it, but I did it consistently. And many people would just never do it. And again, this is before massive email marketing, before HubSpot, before ways that people could build funnels other ways. So, I mean, you really had to get good at this, or you relied on referrals because there was, or you would show up somewhere, right? You would just show up unannounced because how else would you get in front of people? So I had a stint after being a sales employee for a couple of different professional services companies. I had two little boys. I wanted to get off the road. I was looking for a job to do remotely. And so in 2000, I decided to start my first company. And so for over 15 years, my company cold called for other people. Because I realized people will pay you to do this. They don't want to do it. And I built a whole business of people who I knew and liked and trusted, who I had learned, gotten to know over the years. And I would, sort of like a temporary agency, I would place people and they would cold call for other companies and we would help them generate their leads. So the way I got to teaching from that was that I kept having the same conversation over and over and over again with different clients. And I'm not kidding. I wasn't trying to have the same conversation. It just kept happening where that prospective client of that firm, when I had the cold calling firm, they would say, Catherine, we have a great team. We do fine when we get in front of people. We just need more leads. We just need more leads. And I'd say, okay, well, that's what we do. We get more qualified leads. So let's talk about what that looks like. And they always would start the calls that way. They would always say, there's nothing wrong with my team. We're just small. Or there's nothing wrong with my team. We just are, we have low bandwidth. And so we need just more opportunities. And if you get us in front of the right people, we'll do great. But the thing was, that wasn't true. It just wasn't true. And so I served over 200 companies over those 15 plus years, because some projects were long and multi-year and some were very short, and we knew they were short. And so I sold products and services into all of these different industries, and people kept saying that. And what I realized was that if that opportunity was the right person, and they were interested in having a sales call, but it wasn't something they were going to buy imminently. If they weren't going to buy it immediately, what would happen every time, without fail, I kid you not, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times, people would take the call, they would give us feedback and say, great call, that was exactly the right person, super, they're not quite ready, we'll follow up with them. But they wouldn't follow up. They wouldn't. And so I became curious over the years. I became curious about why are they letting these opportunities? And I talk about this in my book, How Good Humans Sell. I say to the reader, okay, reader, you might be thinking, those must not have been very good leads, right? Those must not have been very qualified leads. But that's not true. They were agreed upon by the client. They were right. They just might not be immediate. It might be that that client had a long sales cycle, or that they learned something in a further discovery call. You know, my client's salesperson might have learned that there's going to be multiple people involved in the sale. So it's going to be a multi-step process to get this opportunity pushed through. But if it required persistence, and it required you to continually put yourself out there relationally, you know, take a risk, be brave, follow up if no one gets back to you, follow up if someone misses a call, this is where things would fall apart. And so I started to wonder, is this about sales training? Is this about people not knowing what to say? Or is this about negotiation? Or what is the issue here? And I have tested this. I have polled people, I've done anonymous surveys, I have statistically significant results from my research, and I am 100% convinced that the problem lies here, and it's what people believe about sales, and that they underact and they under-ask because they don't want to be seen as too pushy.
Under
So
ask and
I
under
believe
ask.
sales beliefs are the heart of the issue of why people are not more successful. I think it's the heart of the issue.
So believing in selling is a fundamental. So that is what you totally believe in what you're doing, right? And why don't people
Yes,
believe in
and that you have to believe that sales is something you do for someone. It's not something you do at them, right?
Why
You
is
catch
that?
that difference,
Yes.
right? You have to believe it is giving, that it is service, that it is love, that it is care, that it is purpose, right? You have to believe that it is for a greater purpose, and you have to have these very healthy beliefs about the profession to overcome what, for most people, including me sometimes, right? I still catch myself doing this, but to overcome that little voice that says you'll be bothering them, right? Or they're going to think you're pushy. You have to have so much belief that helps propel you, or you will give up. You will give up. And that's what I saw my clients do over and over and over again. And it was heartbreaking because they were the right leads. There was nothing wrong with the leads. The problem was up here. That was the problem.
Why do we have that kind of problem, Catherine?
Well, I think that human beings are wired for threat, right? We know there's a lot of evolutionary research. We know that fight or flight idea. So I think one of the answers is that people remember, their memory tells them, and they anchor on when they did have a bad sales experience, right? Or when someone did say, I don't appreciate your call, because occasionally that happens, right? I'm not saying that never happens. So I think we become afraid. I think also, to be fair, although I think the vast majority of salespeople in the world, in B2B sales, I think they love their prospects. I think they really care, and they think sales is something you do for someone and not to them. There continue to be selfish, what I call bad actors. Right? There continue to be selfish people who do make the rest of us look bad, and we are all concerned about being lumped in with them. And so we want to distance ourselves and say, well, I'm not like that. And so we basically let other people's behavior dictate our behavior sometimes.
But if, let's say, the market has been having a lot of, bad actors like that, right? And then in the perception of the clients, especially B2B clients, where they have, a lot of works to do already, and they also have a lot of experience with those kind of, bad actors. And so the perception is trying to block as much as they could to prevent themselves from having that same, experiences again. And so how do we, let's say that we have a good humans, intention to sell, and then sell for the people to come and pursue it, and, our prospects to change the point of view, though?
It was a wonderful question. Two thoughts about that. One is, there was this wonderful McKinsey study that came out a couple of years ago. That was this B2B buyer research. I quote this study all the time in my teaching, and it showed this astounding increase in the preferences of B2B buyers to be able to buy online and to not interact with salespeople. Just like you're saying, right? Like that is from a buying perspective. And as a buyer, I love when I can search something on the weekend and I can watch videos and I can do as much self-service as possible prior to talking to a salesperson, right? Because I expect there to be content out there. I expect there to be a way for me to research. So all of those expectations about self-service and what is automated and how long we can push out a sales process before we actually have to talk to a sales professional and have a consulting conversation of some kind, that has been elongated. I 100% agree with you. So then the question becomes, if they're reluctant to speak to us and they almost wish they didn't have to, which is basically what this McKinsey study says, what do we do? Well, we need to be awesome. Right? We need to show up, and we need to add so much value in every conversation. And I would say that so much value is everything from the questions I ask you are the questions that you would be asking if you knew what to ask. So I'm going to coach you and help you as a trusted advisor, even in the sales process, to make sure you're asking the right questions, right? Because none of us know, we don't know what we don't know, right? So we need someone to help us. So we be a trusted advisor. We give away resources, right? We share content, we share best practices, we make recommendations. It's this idea of being a trusted advisor so that we are certain that no matter what the outcome is of that call, maybe it's really still a marketing lead, maybe it doesn't move forward, maybe you disqualify them, and after they do all this research and then they talk, they decide, really, I'm going to go another way, this isn't quite right, or maybe you give them a referral. No matter what, I think we can teach ourselves to use our marketing materials, to ask wonderful open-ended questions, to provide value, to be thoughtful, to show we care, and so that they have a great experience, really regardless of the outcome. And I think in the age of our personal brand, I know you've had people on the podcast talking about their brand, right? In the age of our personal brand, it's very important that we take responsibility as individual sales professionals, and we say, my word is my bond, and I will show up every time and do my best and give and be a generous giver. And if they don't buy from me yet, they might later, and do that over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's how I think we make a difference in people's hearts and minds about what sales is.
Wow, thanks a lot, Catherine. Now talk about the book behind your back, the book that you're writing. That you wrote, How Good Humans Sell, and then it's been in the market for over a year already. So happy birthday for the book. Happy anniversary
for
1 year.
It just had it June 1st was my birthday of the book. So thank you so much.
Yeah, happy belated, a few 2 weeks for that, or 3 weeks for that. And what is the book for? And how did you come up with the idea of writing it and put that onto a book?
So I always like to do any teaching to start about beliefs, because it's this conversation we've been having about what do people believe selling is fundamentally. I did this research. People talked about what they thought selling was. They talked about the negative words that come to mind. And so the book is organized in 2 parts. It's very short read. I've been told it's about 2.5 hours for the first time reader, 8 chapters and an intro. Not long, but the first half is about beliefs, and the second half is the steps of some sales steps of how to. Like, this is literally the 5 components of a good email ask. This is why it works. This is what it means to be a guide. This is how I create a sales sequence of how I follow up consistently to not give up too soon, right? So the first part is about beliefs, and I don't want to say it's theoretical and practical, because I think that healthy beliefs are very practical. I think it's all practical, but I begin with beliefs, and then I talk about some of the implementation, and I pick the name Good Humans, How Good Humans Sell, because I think it gets to the heart of this issue. People are afraid in the sales profession that they will not be perceived positively. And I think that most people want to be a good person. They want to be seen as a good person, and they want to know a way to do that and to reconcile selling. So the book has been popular in 2 circles. One is that business owner who sells their own product or services. So they're the owner seller. That's been very popular there because owners wish they didn't have to sell, right? They wish they could just invent their thing and then not have to do the selling work. And I know that's been the case for my clients. And then the others is it's been used and deployed among sales teams. So a vice president of sales or chief revenue officer might buy it and share it with their team. And you can use that as a basis for me to come and speak at their conference or do sales training for the team. That's been great too.
And then when I research about the book, it's say that you're teaching them how to align the selling in terms of the values, how to keep the integrity, and be comfortable, be confident at selling. And and sometimes that is the idea of everything. But how can we make all of that to happen at once, Catherine?
Yes. So there are a couple things. One is that when you think about your own personal values, I encourage people to do their own values inventory and ask
Mm,
themselves, how do I want to be perceived on this call? I mean, really just think through the steps of that. How do I want, what word do I want to have come to mind if my prospect were interviewed, said, how'd that person do?
mm,
They might say, well, I want to be perceived as very generous, or I
mm,
want to be perceived as a trusted advisor, or I
mm,
want to be seen as very knowledgeable, or whatever the value is. You can learn these business to business principles
mm,
and then get to use your own words and how you implement them. So let
mm,
me give you an example. When people take that first sales call, let's say we have 20 minutes scheduled, someone has watched a demo of my software, or they've watched a video, or they've heard my podcast, and they decide they want to go ahead and talk with me. I don't want to book an hour call. I prefer a short call because the two things I need to make sure of
mm,
are their goals,
mm,
and can I help with their goals if they know what they are? Am I the right person to help with that? And then their timing,
mm,
because we don't want to invest hours and hours in someone, or God forbid, send a proposal if they're not ready because they're still researching,
mm,
right? So I always teach people the purpose of the first call is to understand goals and timing. Now, when I teach and in the book, I give people my favorite questions,
mm.
how I ask that on a call. But if you read my questions and you don't like the way I do it and you want to write your own questions, I think that's great,
Uh,
because the most important thing is that you find out goals and timing.
mm,
Right? If you don't have to do it the way I do it.
mm,
So that the book is very principle driven. Like I say, here is why this is the order.
mm,
Here's why I recommend this type of email.
mm,
But whether you say it this way or that way, or you have your own flair, your own voice, your own twist, that part is very important that you personalize. Because again, if you feel like someone's making you be scripted,
mm,
especially the owner seller, they will be so resistant because they don't want to be seen as fake,
mm. I see.
right? So they don't like when you tell them exactly what to say. They want you to give them instruction and suggestion, but then they want to take that and they want to maybe customize it for their
Customize it.
own
Uh-huh.
language. And that is how I teach. And
Mm,
for some people, it's not specific enough. Some people say, please just tell me exactly what to do. But those people are the minority. Most people want you to say, here's the big picture. Here's what you need to find out. Now, here are 5 different ways you can find it out. Go try these on and see which one
mm,
works for you.
mm. Wow. Wow. I think that at the end, the selling is the experiments that each of us needs to put onto the work so that we can find the sweet spot of how we do things effectively, right? So your work is a guidance for them to find their own sweet spot that works for them also. So help them to navigate through
Yes,
the
in a way
challenge
that feels
easy.
like their personality. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like their style, right? Some people talk more, some people talk less.
Mm-hmm.
Those people who talk more probably need to listen more on sales calls.
Mm-hmm.
I get asked a lot, if a person, is it better for them to be introverted or extroverted? And I think, oh my goodness, it's better to be introverted as a salesperson, because the goal is to listen a lot.
Yeah.
And if you are extroverted and you wake up with a lot of words every day, you might talk over people or present too much. And the whole point about that discovery call is to hear about their goals, is to get them to talk.
Mm.
Because you're listening very carefully and you're deciding, am I really the right person to be their guide? Am I the right person for now? I have a fair bit of calls I take that I send somewhere else because I think, I see why you called me. I see why we're talking. I see why someone might have referred you to me, but I actually think you should make this marketing investment first, or I actually think you need a full-time or part-time fractional chief revenue officer to do this long list of projects you've named. That's outside the scope of what I do. So I want to make referrals out to those things. And so technically I'm disqualifying them in the short run, but I'm building a long relationship because I'm being myself building a friendship, and they'll come back at the right time.
Mm. Catherine, I had a privilege to work to be very closely working with a lot of buyers, procurement office, and they in charge for not just Vietnam but across around the world. And then, so I learned a great deals working with them because when I attend to their workshops and stuff, the world of buying is also changing phenomenally. So, in the selling space, we have a lot of innovation. In the buying space, they also have a lot of innovations to build the muscle in buying, to build the ability to select the right vendor, to negotiate better, and then to find something that really adding value, not just now, but in the future for their organization. So they evolve really, really 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 well. Also, that to me means that our sellers need to upskill ourselves a lot, a lot faster, so that you can up speed with the change in the buying world, right? And then for the 25 years of your experience, and then also for teaching, solopreneur, and then for the sales team, where do you see that the skills, most important skill, that if we want to be a successful, good human seller, um, what do we need to learn now to build that skill up?
Mhm. Mm. It's such a good question. So most of my clients sell to the business owner of middle market. That
Mm,
tends to be the size of company I work with. So I don't have as many clients who sell and have to always get a purchase order cut or work with procurement,
mm,
because they're not always that big of enterprise sales. It doesn't mean that they're not high ticket items,
mm,
but it means they might not be selling to a hospital system, or
mm,
to a huge tech company. But I run social audio rooms, and I have different communities I've been where I do have buyers who come to those. And what they say in those rooms is they say that they want to be treated with respect,
mm,
and they want to have a real relationship, and they want that salesperson to be patient,
mm.
and to understand that they remember. I mean,
Mm.
those I'm talking about the purchasing buyers, right?
Yep.
They remember what salespeople made them mad, and
Mm.
they remember what salespeople were respectful and thoughtful. And I think about a client of mine that sells enterprise software, where they have lots of people in the decision process. They might have even really 5 people in 5 different types of offices from the company in the demo, and then they might have 8 or 9 people who will actually review a final proposal, who get to vote on the
Mm.
software they pick. And so when you can,
Mm.
the thing that we want to do is remember that every one of those people, all the way from purchasing to vice president of whatever, they all have their own goals. They have their
Mm.
individual goals, their individual agendas,
Mm.
right? They want to look good, they want to be successful, they want
Yep.
to know that you are going to help them, and that you are not a threat to
Mm.
that, but that you are going to assist them in their departmental and individual goals. And so that good humanness has to go all the way through. So unfortunately, I don't know of a shortcut. I
Mm.
mean, I think it's funny because while we have all these advancements in marketing and automation and all these other things, people still want you to take time with them at the end of the day with these big ticket items. And every person in that process needs to feel good and feel attended to. And in that way, I would say I don't feel like things have changed that much in the 25
Mm.
years,
Yeah.
in those basic fundamental principles of what people want. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. So you need to understand the ability to understand, what the buyer wants, and how you can relate to that, how you can truly help, instead, help the other people to grow their career, and that you build, that I think that is that fundamental would never change, and
And not just the buyer, like I would say also every person that is the researcher or the influencer in that process, because those people can really be a saboteur, right? They may not have the decision-making authority, but they can say, I don't give this my vote. This doesn't have my support.
mm,
And then that good boss who wants to build consensus around this idea
mm,
is really in a sticky spot if everyone doesn't vote for you, right?
yep,
So I think that it is just the same case of respect that has to be shown all the way around. And when we rush people and we try to cut corners, it ends up hurting us in the long run, because don't forget, a lot of those people will go work somewhere else at some point too. I mean, we're seeing that turnover, and people don't stay at companies the way they did before. So in actuality, that same person that buys one product or service from you here might buy another product or service from you here, depending on how long you have a sales career. So ideally, you would build a deep relationship that would transcend those locations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Catherine, I like to ask this because earlier you mentioned about the word curiosity, all right? And then throughout the conversation, there was a lot of moment of curiosity in your life, that you're curious to know why your clients need, more qualified leads, and why they are, not, they're afraid of calling and selling and things like that. So those curiosity needs you foster your ability to think, all right? And my wife and we on the quest of helping people around us to think better and then become a better thinker, because we believe that with a lot of change now, our ability to think is not increasing but actually it's declining. It's that sad to see in it. So every time we got a chance to talk to experts or who has the ability to think well in that space, we would like to ask this question: how do you process your thinking and give yourself space for for fostering your thinking ability? Can you share with us that secret?
Sure. So I consume so much audio content. And this is my process. So I read a physical book most mornings. I have a routine in the morning where I am always working my way through some typically nonfiction. I read fiction on vacation and trips and travel, and I read nonfiction for personal development when I just during the regular work week. And so I will be reading a book at any given point in time. I'm not really a read 5 books at one time kind of person. I do one at a time, just go straight through, assuming I like it and I finish it. So I do a book at a time that way. And then I have a 1-hour walk every day. So because I sit and teach and stand and teach so much, I do a lot of sitting. And in order to stay healthy and to have good habits coming out of COVID, I realized I've got to get out of the house and really take care of my body, so that my body and my mind are well and last a long time. So I have an hour walk every morning, and not every morning. Sometimes I have quiet white space and I just let my mind wander. But a lot of times I use that to listen to videos and podcasts. And this is what happens to me every time I listen to a video or podcast. I'm not exaggerating. Every time I'm like 80% listening to what the speaker is saying as I'm walking. And then 20% of my mind is trying to apply what they're saying. So an example might be, if it's a marketing podcast, they're talking about launching a digital course. Well, even if I'm not about to launch a digital course, I'm thinking about the process of their funnel, or I'm thinking about how they answered people's questions, or I'm thinking about the secrets they share, how, what worked, and I'm applying it to something I have coming up. And invariably I have to stop, pause it, and then my staff all works remotely. We're in 4 different states in the US. So I have to jump on my voicemail app and I talk to my phone and I say, okay, team, here's what I want to do. And I get the message out there to the staff, and we talk about it later, but it's basically a placeholder for me to say, don't let me forget to come back and tell you about this thing. And so that's how I stay curious and how I learn. And I have podcasts. I listen to all the major sales podcasts. I shouldn't say all, there's a lot out there, but I listen to many of the major sales podcasts, but I listen to so many other kinds of podcasts too. And that's the other thing I would encourage for your listener, is that, like, one of my favorites is called, I've really been on a kick lately for Creative Conversations, which is put out by Fast Company. And they interview poets and actors and all kinds of creatives. And it's not about selling. but every time I listen, there's something I pull from it that seems to make sense to me about
Mm,
entrepreneurship. And so I think even crossing across industry
yep.
really serves us because it gives us more of those fresh ideas.
Mm. We always understand that, if we want to go beyond our current role, our current boundaries, we need to talk to somebody in the industry that total, not related to us, right? I think you have a gift to connect also, from what you listen to, and then you'll be able to connect to what you're currently doing, and then you can see the values from those that you listen to so that you can reapply and expand it into the space that you are working. So that's a gift. Not a lot of people have the ability to do that, Catherine. And I have two more
Thank you.
questions before I let you go for the day because your day had been so long already. One question is it's a promise and a commitment that I need to do for my coach. Okay, and I need to ask everyone that I had the chance to interview a bizarre question. Okay.
Okay. I feel
So,
prepared.
yes. So you've been out of professional musician for 25 years. So my bizarre question for you: are you still spend time doing that from time to time?
Oh, with music, you're asking.
Yeah.
So, this is going to sound sad, I'm afraid. I, when we had children, it was very important to me to give the kids opportunities to learn music. And
Mm,
I believe 100% that people do not love anything until they're good at it.
mm,
So we made the kids take music lessons for a long time because in the United States, it's very common for people to do like 1 or 2 years of piano. And
mm,
then their kids want to quit and they'll say, especially if they're boys, they'll say, I want to play baseball, I want to play soccer, I want to do something else. And the extracurricular schedule piles up and they say, oh, okay, and they let them quit. And then when they're adults, they say, Mom, why'd you let me quit? So this is a very common thing. So the boys, we really invested heavily with the kids. Both kids are musicians. They stuck with it. Sure enough, Mom was right. After several years of practicing, they started to really enjoy it because they didn't stink anymore. They were good. So we really invested in the kids, and now they're adults and they enjoy playing and they play for us, and we love that. I listen to music every day. I love it. I have no desire to go back and perform.
okay.
I I don't. It sounds so sad because I did invest so many years, but I'm so grateful for the years I had because I got to travel the world when I was in high school. We
Mm,
got to go to Eastern Europe and I got to tour before we toured Eastern Europe before the wall came down.
mm,
And I got to see, communist Poland and got to go through Czechoslovakia when it was still called that, and Yugoslavia when it was still called that. I mean, it was very special to get to do so many of the things I got to do.
mm,
But I am so much more gratified in the very people intensive work I'm doing
mm.
now. It's music is very solitary. You have to spend a lot of hours practicing, and I enjoyed it for a season, and I'm glad I'm doing this now.
Okay, okay. The next question for you is this. So Ryan has been writing three books already, and you only have one.
Only
And
one.
so the competition is right there, right? Is there anything new and exciting you, Catherine, is working on to keep the speed with him, and you would like to share with our audience in advance so that we can
Sure, thank
celebrate with you
you.
now?
Sure, thank you so much. Yeah, so I think I'm going to be a contributor. I think I'm going to do a book about entrepreneurship and have the
Mm.
sales section. So
Ah.
I'm working with a group of people on something that I think will have multi authors.
Mm.
So that will be something we can turn around more quickly, and I'll talk about sales beliefs for the early stage to entrepreneur. So that'll be a bit more niched,
Sure.
still about sales, but a little bit more niche audience.
Sure.
I think that will probably be the first thing that will come out. So that'll get me, I'll have two and he'll have three. But then I think he'll still be ahead of me because we're doing a lot of research for this that's requiring studies at multiple universities because we need a lot of data.
Ah.
But right now we're also studying something that's called aspirational identity.
Mm.
And the question is why can some people see future change more easily than others?
Mm.
Why can some people grow more easily than others? This can actually be measured. And so I'm very interested in this intersection of sales success and personal development because one of the things people struggle with is setting sales goals. And it's very, very difficult for some of my clients, but for others, it's clear and easy. And I think it has something to do, I'm testing this theory, but I think it has something to do with just the way they are inside them and how easily they can envision a future better version of themselves. And I think this is really hard for some people.
So aspiration identity, is that what you say?
Aspirational identity.
Wow. I have a book here from a friend of mine. His name is Marshall Goldsmith, and it's The Earned Life. Yes. And then in that one, I think that it can be a good source for you to I'll text you the name and
that's a great idea. I'm familiar with him, but I have not read that book.
And then he sent me a copy of this when he releases, right? And this book also talk about a part of the aspirational, because a lot of CEOs, even that at top level, they have a good ambition of where they want to become, what they wanted to do. They have a good source of action to lead them where they want to be, to get that ambitious goals, right? But they don't have, like aspirations. So thanks for doing that work, Catherine. I think we need to inject, in the ideas for people to build aspirations for their lives. So that, if we want to build something better for a community, for the home, for the, society, then aspiration is far bigger than ambition. Do so, and I wish you all the best in that research. Okay, and if anything that we can be add value to support, you let me know, and I'm be so helpful, so happy to support, with anything that we could do.
Oh gosh, well, we love data, and you have access to a lot of people, so I might take you up on that.
Sure, definitely. I would definitely be so happy to do that. All right.
Thank you so much.
Catherine, thank you so much for being a busy day for you already, and then still, be able to join to my show and share your story and the journey that you have been having. And thanks a lot for teaching the sellers that we can always be good humans in selling. And I always love selling, and I always love to be, doing great things for people. So thank you for doing all of that to make a selling community a lot better. And I look forward for more exciting things that you are doing, and I wish you all the best. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking me to be your guest and for this time.
Thank you very much. You have a beautiful evening there.
Tell Ryan and your boys
that we say hello.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.